and then I just start booking it, and the camera's locked on her as she's dropping down in slow motion with the sun behind her. I knew exactly where I wanted it to be in the video.
Balls hanging low while I pop a bottle off of your chain swinging, clang clang, and it costs a lot. Bitch, I'm always at the guala, yeah, and you are not badass beat. Keep on going till you hit the spot. Whoa.
Is anybody else just tired? Like straight up, is anyone else just like, wow, October was a lot. Between Techtober, making videos, being a cat dad, Lizzie's birthday, I'm just a little bit tired. See, I was raised by a German family, and the Germans, they like to work, 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 play a little bit, then work, work, work again. And there's a word for that. It is Geschwindigkeiten. That's actually not the word. That's the word for peace and tranquility, by the way. No, it's not. But essentially, we have just been working super hard on this channel, and we released a very big project recently called the Kreator Anthem. See, DJI approached us and said, hey, Chris, we have this brand new camera coming out. We would like you to create a short film, to create some sort of hero video for us for the release of this camera. And this is the first time that DJI has ever asked us to do anything on this channel, and I wanted to make sure that we pulled out all the stops to make them stoked. But also, I've had this idea of something I've wanted to create for a very long time, and this seemed like the right project to do it on. So if you guys haven't watched it at this point, please go watch the Kreator Anthem. This is gonna be a full breakdown of essentially how we came up with the creative, going into pre-production, how we actually created the song, moving into production, how we shot this thing, the lessons that we learned trying to actually put this all together, and then into post-production, everything from coloring to editing, the full package from start to finish. Okay, so I mentioned this was a piece that I've always wanted to create, and for a lot of you, if you didn't know, I actually used to be a musician and singer-songwriter growing up. Before I actually transitioned into being a YouTuber. So it's been a while since I've written something. My initial ideas was like, I want to create a piece for other creators to empower them, to make them feel stoked about being a creator. So essentially one day I just like have my notes app, nothing special, literally Apple Notes. I put on noise canceling headphones, I turned off the Wi-Fi, and I just sat and wrote and kept working at it. And every time I shared the piece with someone, this was the common response from everybody when it was done. You wrote this? Yeah, I can be creative and sentimental. Anyways, that's how I wrote the piece in just like one moment, essentially like one full day, just working at it, both on my phone and on my computer, tried to block out as many distractions as possible. So after I finished writing this, I was like, you know what? I feel like it needs some sort of backing track. So I came across a producer named Mark9, who's worked with other content creators in our field, such as Sam Newton. And I actually literally just called him up and I was like, hey, this is the piece that I have. I performed it for him. And again, he even said, you wrote that? And he was like, I love it. Give me 24 hours.
And this is for the artists, the ones too scared to post, the bedroom creators who keep their cards close and don't let this be another video. Put action to these words and bring life to this life.
So literally the next day, 24 hours later, he sent me the first draft of this piece and it was basically like 90% done. The only revision that I wanted, I was like, it needs more drums. It needs to have like kettle drums and it needs to be like boom, 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 boom. Something like that. I kind of felt like Jack Black in the School of Rock. He understood. He spoke my ratata language. And he was able to finally piece the whole thing together. So we actually finished the song in like 3 days. The song, the art piece, the spoken word cinematic journey, whatever you want to call it. It's on Spotify and you can go check it out. So yeah, essentially 3 days, Mark9 crushed it. Speaking about music, if you guys don't have the resources to write and record your own music, that brings us to the sponsor of today's video, Licked. The main reason why a lot of YouTubers like myself don't use popular music in our YouTube videos like Megan Thee Stallion is because we're worried about copyright claims, strikes, and loss of monetization. This happens all the time. Licked is a music licensing site that has a mission to sign all major labels and publishers so they become your go-to for licensing commercial music. Licked's vision is to make commercial music available to everyone. Now, a few of the reasons why we love Licked on this YouTube channel is because it saves you time. I guarantee that we've all listened to some sort of Spotify playlist and heard some epic popular song and we're like, this would have been so good for my coffee B-roll montage in slow motion. But now it saves you time because you've already found that song. It saves you money. Traditionally, commercial music costs thousands of dollars. If you're a YouTuber, it allows you to make ad revenue even when you're using popular music. So you can use artists such as Skrillex, Migos, or even one of my favorites of all time, Dolly Parton. It can improve your connection with your audience. If they're familiar with the song that you're using in your video, they might stay longer, and that will ultimately help your channel grow. Licenses are valid for YouTube, and many include Instagram and Facebook. They operate on a one video use license, which means that you can use the same song multiple times in one video. And one license covers one video upload on each permitted platform. By supporting Licked, you are supporting artists, so save 50% off your first track on Licked and improve the quality of your videos by using popular music. Links are in the description. Thank you, Licked, for sponsoring this breakdown. So moving on to pre-production. Now, in my personal opinion, one of the most important things that you can do when you're trying to work on something really big and very ambitious is to find an amazing team to do it with. Now, I come from a world where I used to be a predator. That's a definition, by the way. Producer, director, editor. I'm just jumping in there right away because that word is not a great word. Don't ever tell someone, hey, I'm a predator. So for this project in particular, I needed an awesome team. And one of the last things that we did in pre-production is that we created storyboards. Now, these are important for a few reasons. Number one, it gives the client an idea of what the final video is going to look like. And number two, it means that when you're actually shooting, you have an idea of what your shots are going to be. And even if you do this for a few shots, it will help you think about how the final piece is going to come together. Because there's many times where I've just gone in blind, shot a bunch of things. I was like, oh, cool. All these different scenes look exactly the same because I only did wide shots. So being able to visualize what your final video is going to look like through storyboards is so important. Okay, moving on to our favorite thing, production. Now, this entire thing was shot on the Ronin 4D, which is this camera right here. This camera was a blast to shoot with, and primarily it's because it's so easy to set up. Fun fact, every single creator that was in this video, we pretty much shot with for only an hour. For example, that shot of Mel dancing on that bridge, we got everything we needed in the first 10 minutes. We showed up, turned the camera on, turned on the 4-axis stabilization, got the shots while the sun was perfect, and then it went away, and then we were like, okay, I think we're done. And that's because this thing is just super easy to just turn it on, start recording. Okay, so like I mentioned before, I did this with a team. Now, I had my friend Martin Wojtunik, who was another cinematographer, collaborate on this project. So he was there for most of the shoots, not all of them. And for the shoots that he was there, sometimes we would swap. Sometimes he would be the cinematographer and I would be holding the wireless monitor and pulling focus. And it was super fun because it was the first time I had ever done something like that. Normally, I'm the person composing the shot, trying to nail the focus, being the predator, like I mentioned before. Now, this camera has a few important features that I did want to test out on this short film, and one of the most important ones being active track mode. There was a scene that we were shooting with my friend Maccie, who was the aerialist in the video, and there was this one moment where like the sun was just on the horizon, she's perfectly backlit, it looks amazing, and she does this one trick where she like wraps herself up and she lets go and essentially like drops down like an angel attached to a string, and we pretty much only had like 2 attempts to get it. And to capture it, I really wanted to shoot it in slow motion. But if I'm capturing in slow motion, I have to go faster to make that shot look better, essentially, because I wanted to wrap around her while she dropped. So I'm literally holding this camera, I turn on active track mode, I literally turn on the 4D, the 4-axis stabilization, and like Macie's like, are you ready? And I'm like, yeah, and then I just start booking it, and the camera's locked on her as she's dropping down in slow motion with the sun behind her. I knew exactly where I wanted it to be in the video, and that's how this part right here came together. So when we were shooting Mr. Koo, the tattoo artist, he has this amazing location that's literally in the backyard of his house, and there was this one dolly shot that I really wanted going through the door. This was the edge of the door right here. Every time I bumped into it. So literally I need more space. I hit the side of the wall here. I'm literally just gonna take this off to have more space so I get a better composition. Can you hold this? Yeah. Yo, he's stoked. So essentially, I went like this right past the door, and I was able to get this shot right here, which ended up in the final cut and looks amazing. Because I don't think I'd be able to do that with a normal like DSLR or mirrorless camera on a stabilizer. There'd just be too much stuff in the way. The location that we spent the most amount of time at was Neon Demon for a few reasons. One, there was like a lot of complicated lighting setups that we had. We have all of the lights. Two, we spent a lot of time like discussing on like how I should be presented and what my wardrobe should be. Too aggressive. I also just have like a beige hoodie that I can wear with these. But the most important thing that I learned during all of this was that my first performances, I was like way too aggressive out of the gate. So we pared it all back. And then what I did is I tried to match the tonality of the piece. What you'll notice is when it opens up, my hands are in the pocket and I start with like mute the noise, my head's down. It's a lot of body language. And then as the piece starts to open up, I start to use my hands. My head goes higher. The camera movements get a little bit more aggressive. And essentially towards the end buildup, you have quick push-ins and dolly movements. You have me like really going aggressive to the camera and addressing the camera. These are all creative decisions that I made with my collaborators, Martin Wojtunik and John Simo, on location at Neon Demon. I think that's a really important part about creativity is when you show up on set and you're collaborating with people, like let ideas fly. So Martin was like, well, why don't we end out on this neon sign over here? And we're thinking like, oh, it means good luck. That's a cool message. But we're like, actually mute the noise is the last line. Why don't we end on the television? And then John was like, I actually have these smart switches. I can turn them off. So like that was literally idea that just build upon. That's a really important part about creativity. And that's why also I'm really stoked about this crew that's here today. There's a lot of cool creative people.
We're not that cool.
One of the hardest decisions that we had to make is we literally had to cut 2 whole scenes from this video that took an entire day to shoot. Number one, there was just too many storylines to follow, like 7 different people plus me performing. It just felt like it was going all over the place. So taking things away actually allowed everybody to have a moment and for the art piece to breathe. Now moving specifically onto Divine Darling, what we noticed is when we looked at the footage afterwards, there was a bit of a disconnect. Number one, she's supposed to be performing for an audience and there's no audience. So that felt a bit off. And number two, because she's singing a song and I'm performing a piece, it just felt a little disjointed there that you'd see her singing and then you hear me like mute the noise and pause a repetitive choice. So it was really tough because we really wanted Divine Darling to be in the final video. But at the end of the day, we had to make the decision to leave it on the cutting room floor. And the second person that we had to cut was my friend Jordan, who's a professional wake skater. Now he builds custom wake skateboards and that is his art. I wanted to showcase him building a board, putting grip tape on it, and then literally going like and doing tricks on it. But at the end of the day, when we looked at the footage, it wasn't obvious that he was an artist. It really came more across like he was an athlete. So again, we had to cut Jordan's part too. Those are such hard decisions to make because in my opinion, some of the best footage from the entire campaign and part of production was Jordan. Like he has all these slow motion tricks of him doing like shove-its off of rails. We spent an hour driving to that location. We were in this boat. I love making things. There was so much coordination involved. I wanted to use that footage, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the bigger picture, zoom out, 24 mil, and focus on the perspective and focus on what really matters and what supports the story. So because this camera shoots raw footage, the file management on this was absolutely insane. We shot 2 terabytes worth of footage. So Lucas did all the data management and he did all the selects while building this edit. And then I came in and I found all the selects and I was able to piece the story together. So that initial cut, because of all the help that Lucas provided there, only took me around 5 hours, but there's probably like how many hours did you spend doing selects? 2 days. 2 days of selects for me to come in and be like, boop, 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 done in 5 hours. So after 5 hours, I exported it. I sent that initial cut to DJI without the color, and then I sat on it for a day. The next day, I showed my wife, Lizzie, who is an amazing editor, and she literally was like, I think it could be like a little bit better, a little bit faster. So essentially, I spent another 3 hours on that edit. Again, I hadn't heard back from DJI yet. I sent them the next cut, and then literally I got a response back from them being like, oh yeah, you fixed all of this in the second cut right now. We just wanted it to be faster and have more interesting cuts and cut to the music. So Lizzie had the vision. So again, collaboration is so important. Show a bunch of people your edit to get different eyeballs on it and different opinions because it will make the edit better. And the final stage of this whole process is color. This is essentially the icing on the cake. We had built a nice cake at this point, but it wasn't fancy looking enough. So I brought Qazi on, who is the colorist I was mentioning before, and he just knocked it out of the park. And I was so happy that I brought him on because if I had colored this piece, it would not be nearly as good and as impactful. And I think it's really important to recognize where you have weaknesses in your skill set, not trying to be a predator all the time, like I was saying before. I recognize that I'm pretty decent at directing, shooting, and some editing, but again, I had a whole team to help me bring that together. Take your ego out of the way, showcase your weaknesses, and allow someone else to step in with their professional insight to make things better. And I'm so happy how this final video turned out. If you guys want to go check out all the people that I collaborated with on this video, links are in the description. Thanks Licked for sponsoring this video. Thank you DJI for the opportunity to make this final project. I'm so happy that it's out in the world. If you like this video, please press like. It actually would mean the world to me. Subscribe and hit the bell to be notified for future videos, and we will catch you guys in the next one. And something that I haven't done in a really long time, and because I have the microphone for it today, is an ASMR outro. Hi everybody. I am so overwhelmed. Can you hear my heart beating super fast? because there's so many videos to make for October and Techtober. Just listen.